Okay. So welcome everyone to this Veeam Partner Academy of the first one of 2021. Also, Steen from Veeam is on the call. We should be with a quite some big group. So normally everyone is or will be muted on entry. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. So Stan, while I talk, Stan can have a look at them and we'll follow up on them afterwards. And of course, this is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the Big Data website, the link sent to you, and also the presentation will be made available afterwards. So the purpose of today is just to give you some tips and tell you where Veeam can help you with battling ransomware. But first, a quick introduction to ransomware on itself. At the end of the presentation, I will have a few links to places on the Veeam website which will educate you more on what is ransomware if you want that. But ransomware has a history. It's not new. First, the ransomwares date from the previous century. But one of the main things that changed the complete ransomware business is first of all the criminal business models changed because with cryptocurrencies, getting of cryptocurrencies, it became a lot easier to earn money without being traceable with ransomware and with encryption of data and extortion things on the internet. So the cryptocurrencies were an enabler for the ransomware, and we see quite a big boost in complexity of the attacks and so on. But how can Veeam help you with protecting from or recovery of ransomwares? First of all, it's all about resiliency against ransomware threats, and from a Veeam standpoint, it's all about recovery. It's not really protecting it against the infection, but Veeam will help you, especially around recovery of when a threat happened. One of the big enablers here is the portable data format of Veeam, where we will see that we can move our data from on-premise easily to a cloud solution. So if you got infected and everything is encrypted, you don't have confidence anymore in your own local hardware installation. We can easily move the recovery, the restore to a cloud solution. And of course, the complete stack of Veeam solutions is software defined hardware agnostics. We don't care about the hardware on which we run, and it's cloud ready. So that's a nice one. How can Veeam, let's say, deliver the resiliency against ransomware? Well, it comes all down to three steps. The first step, of course, has nothing really to do with Veeam, but it's education of your users to, let's say, identify the signs of a possible, hacker or ransomware trying to get in, knowing which mail could be tricky and so on. But of course, it's not about users also. Your administrators should be educated also because security plays a big role in it. Even an administrator has to be aware of symptoms of some threats and so on. And of course, the second step is implement a solid backup and recovery implementation. And of course, plan on beforehand. Know what can go wrong and have a plan how to recover from it, because once it happens, it will be a stressful situation. So if everything is well documented, reported, and so on, it will make your life easier. So if we have a small look at what Veeam Solutions does what, detection, it's not an anti-malware solution, but with Veeam One, we can detect a malware problem or a ransomware problem. There has been built-in logics in Veeam to really detect some suspicious activities where based on CPU and write activities. And since V10, we even have a possibility to have a warning on a change rate. We all know that, well, let's say on an average, we have a change rate in regular companies of around 10%. If on a certain day, the change rate of our data goes to 80, 90%, or even 100%, we know something is wrong. And V1 can help you here with alarms and remediations in the fact of shutting down a virtual machine or putting it in some kind of isolation that's possible. Of course, we have also the backup strategy, people and processes. Design it on a good way. Use technologies like the 3-2-1 rule, where we will be coming back in a few minutes. Use immutable backups or backup storage. Make use of sure backup, storage integrations, and of course, with the restore and remediation capabilities of a secure restore, for instance, you're never sure when your infection happened. So before you restart the data, we can have it scanned with our up-to-date antivirus, anti-malware software, so that we're sure that we're not replanting the seed of our malware infection back into our production environment. So if it's a known infection at that moment, our anti-malware, antivirus software should detect it and take it away from the data we restore. And here a screenshot of one of the possible alarms within Veeam One. So it has been more than 3 years that the logic has been in there to detect possible ransomware activities. And especially with version 10, we have now the change rate logic also, where we can detect how much delta is changed between our backups. And that could be also an alarm or a trigger to start investigating our environment more. So if we talk to Veeam support, there are 3 big things that they recommend in our defense or resiliency in against ransomware. And that's, of course, our 3-to-1 rule, or the resilient copies we need. Keep more than 1 copy on different storages or even locations, or air gapped maybe, to be able to recover. So if your main site goes completely encrypted, you still have an offsite or even an offline air gapped copy of your data from which you can restore. The second one has less to do with the restore and backup, but it's all about permissions and hardening. Security is a key aspect in how quick and how much of your environment can be encrypted by the ransomware, and how easily they get in and encrypt your data. So security will be a key factor, and separation also. If we talk about security, yeah, it's difficult sometimes. You have to design for it, but keep a big separation between your multiple copies, between your user environment, let's say, and your backup environment, production environment, and so on. Of course, the complete solution of Veeam, it's a well-known slide. The complete stack, the data stack of Veeam, within the bottom, the universal storage API is a storage integration, which plays a big role about protecting your environment with quite a lot of partnerships Veeam has there. And then, of course, what we can protect on the top side of the slide, the virtual environments. We also do physical and NAS environments now, SaaS environments, and also we protect cloud environments, and especially the data portability between all those environments. And with cloud, we can even add another one since last month, which is the protection for Google Cloud. So the goal is to have a look at some best practices. What can we do? Yeah, from a security with Veeam standpoint to have a better protection with the Veeam solutions. But the first one is really about Veeam. It should be a general consideration, and it's security. Think and design for security, and security, yeah, it's not always convenient because it's or an ease of use or it's secure. Both don't really go hand in hand. A lot of people, especially in the smaller companies, uh, they will say, "Well, it's quite easy. I do everything, so I give me the domain admin rights, and I am also the backup administrator, and of course I'm also the storage administrator and maybe network administrator and so on." And by placing the one role or doing the one role with one user account, that's not really secure because once the account gets compromised, the hacker or the ransomware has access to everything and has a free pass to all your infrastructure. So think about the security, separate everything. And this is okay, it's not an easy way to go. Your different administrators will have to log in with different user accounts for different domains and so on. But by separating everything in separate domains, air-gapped environments, and so on, we make sure that if our production domain where our users exist get compromised, we still have some separations, and the ransomware can't get from your production domain to your resources domain where your backups live. So it stays within your production domain. It has no way to get to your research domain where your Veeam installation is, where your backups are, your data is resiliently stored. And of course, if you implement it well and get an offsite backup in the cloud, well, that won't get compromised also because it's completely air-gapped separated. If you use Veeam Cloud Connect, for instance, as an end user, or you deliver it to your customers as a service provider of Veeam, it's completely separated also. So the ransomware won't get there. And even from insider attacks, we can protect there from malicious deletions and so on with the insider protection, where we will talk about later on. And of course, if you have, let's call it an offline domain, which means we have rotating disks, for instance, or a tape drive. Well, if the tape drives are out of the tape, they won't be deleted also or infected by the ransomware. Design for cyber recovery. So we have some detection features like Veeam, the data integration APIs, detection with a staged restore, for instance, and data lab, for instance. And then, of course, quite a few recovery features that we can implement and make sure that we get our data back when infected. The 3-to-1 rules, we talk about it later, sure backup, secure restore, cloud tier with immutability, Cloud Connect that we can offer as a service to our customers and so on, because detection is key, and we try to detect it as early as possible. Of course, it's not always before the exploit happens or the cyber attack happens, but we try to have the detection as early as possible. So That's a key point with Veeam. One of the key elements in the battle, and it's something which, from a backup standpoint, we're talking about it already, let's say 10 years and more, is a 3-2-1-0 rule. So if you do backups, try to get 3 different copies of your data. So the first copy is your running virtual machine, and then you have at least 2 copies of your backups on, let's say, 2 different medias. Could be 2 different storage devices, but that can also be tape or what else? And of course, one should be offsite or offline or air-gapped, like you want to call it. So if the complete site goes down, you have something in your hands or outside of that location from which you can recover. And of course, and that's a hard one, test your backups. Okay, it takes time, it takes an effort, but test your backups for errors so that you're sure what's stored in your backup repositories. It's good to do a restore from, that you don't end when you want to do the restore that you can't read the data or it's corrupted. So test it. Offline or air-gapped storage, of course, one of the cheapest is still the tape. You write it, or even with a worm, write it once with many tapes, and we can take it offline by taking it away from the tape drive. Replicated VMs can take it air-gapped also, replicated to another vSphere or Hyper-V installation in a different domain, even with the Cloud Connect. We can offer a Cloud Connect replication, which keeps it away from the site of your users. Primary storage snapshots. It's a strange thing to say because it won't be offline or away, but it has an authentication framework, security framework, which is different from your user domain normally, and it can give you quite a quick restore possibility. We'll talk about it later on. And of course, Veeam Cloud Connect backups. Veeam Cloud Connect, which is a service you as a service provider from Veeam could offer to your customers. And it's really a simple thing, something you install in your infrastructure, in your data center, or you could host it even in a cloud infrastructure like Azure. And for the end user, just another backup repository. So it's quite easy to set up for the end user, and it works seamlessly around his backup infrastructure. Now, and something we see less common is rotating hard drives, but it's a possibility. It's similar to tape, but with the hard drive now. But one thing that our 3-2-1-0 rule doesn't really say is, okay, it helps you, it makes sure that we have enough copies, that data is secure, that the data is restorable, but it has nothing to do with the recovery itself. So it won't tell us anything about how long it will take us to do the restore. Where to restore, and in which order to restore, and that's the planning phase. We also have Veeam Availability Orchestrator where we can play a role and document everything, but you should test the restore, so it will give you especially an idea on how long it will take you to do a restore for a certain virtual machine or the complete infrastructure, and document it. How will you go if everything is down? Where will you restore? Which infrastructure? How long it will take you approximately, and so on. 2 terms, I think most of you will already know them. Yeah, the recovery point objective and the recovery time objective. The recovery point objective is, to put it short, is number of data you're willing to lose. Do you want to be able to go back 1 hour in time, 1 day in time? Then you lose 1 day, the last day of data you worked on. So the recovery point of objective is how far do you need to go back in time, and data between those 2 points you're willing to lose the changes. And the recovery time objective is, of course, how fast do you want to be back up and running? Of course, the shorter the two, the more expensive and the more complex it will get. But those are the two main terms that we need to take in account. So a high-level architecture of Veeam backup replication. I think most of you already know it. So on the left, we have our virtual infrastructure. Could be Azure, Hyper-V, or Nutanix, with its own storage, maybe with storage snapshots. And then, of course, we have in the middle our Veeam infrastructure, where we are using a backup repository, maybe a scale-out repository with some object storage in an offsite location, tape servers, and so on. I just mentioned on the production side, on the left-hand side, already storage snapshots, and it's something that people don't really see as a real backup method, but it's one with a great RPO and RTO score or numbers, let's say, because doing a backup takes some influence on the production virtual infrastructure, on the production virtual machines. So, okay, you can use snapshotting technologies and so on there too. But with a storage, difference between, let's say, the regular snapshotting technologies, application-aware snapshotting, and a storage snapshot. Storage snapshot takes less time, less influence on production. We can do it more often in that way. So in the timeline on the bottom of the slide, we could decide that we do every day a backup, like most companies, or every half a day we take a backup. But in between, we could decide that every hour we do a storage snapshot, because it will give me some flexibility and quite a bit RTO point of stand. If a user in the morning creates a new file and accidentally force deletes it, even from the recycle bin, or anything else happens, he calls you, probably you will have to say, I can't restore it because I didn't make it backup yet. But with a storage snapshot every hour, which is quite easy to take, you can have a look at it and do a restore, because with Veeam, we have also the Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots. And it's just like Windows file system. You browse through your storage, you select the right storage snapshot, and you browse through it, just like we all know with the regular Veeam Explorers, even for Active Directory Exchange and so on. And we can restore an item, a file, whatever you want to restore, which is in that storage snapshot. So it's quite a quick way to have a short RPO and RTO against a threat. So backups, well, it's logic. It's basic of your protection, or the basis of your protection. It's with Veeam, it's always an image level backup with granular restore options, like application aware, Active Directory Exchange, SQL, SharePoint, Oracle databases, restores. It's agentless. Of course, we have the agents if you still have a physical workload or a cloud workload that's not supported by the agentless technologies we have. We do have encryption And one of the main things I want to come back to is, especially if you deliver the backup as a service to your customers, try to set up your backup jobs as policy driven as possible, most much possible policy driven as possible, meaning like with VMware, we can use tags, so that if a end user creates a new virtual machine in this environment, you don't have to change anything to your backup jobs, as long as the user just creates this VM, gives it the proper tag of the system, and it will be automatically taken care in the next run of our backup jobs. You don't have to change anything anymore on your backup side. The backup jobs will just take every virtual machine with a certain tag, so that it's more policy driven. You don't have to change anything anymore in the configuration of your backup infrastructure. Backup copies. So the first thing we have to do is, after our primary backup, make a backup copy to secondary backup storage that we own ourselves. On the slide, it's mentioned on site, but keep it more as a secondary site if you have it as a customer itself, or you could set up. If you don't have a physical secondary site, you could set up in Azure, for instance, create a kind of a secondary site there where you can have backup copies to, or replication to, and so on. Of course, if you are a Veeam service provider, you could set up Veeam Cloud Connect and offer it as a service, so that the customer can set up a backup copy job to your Veeam Cloud Connect service, which is really just simple for him and acts like a regular backup repository. And of course, we could use one acceleration. One acceleration will limit the bandwidth usage and the data we need to send over the one links, which is quite nice to have. So the one acceleration, it will reduce the bandwidth needed by using global caching and so on, compression techniques. So it will save time to transfer the data to your secondary site or to the Veeam Cloud Connect, and it will save you on bandwidth costs and reduce also the bandwidth needed. With version 10, there were quite a few changes there, and even on high bandwidth connections, we can have an advantage here now with the WAN acceleration. And even if you have enough bandwidth, it could be especially from you as a service provider to the Veeam Cloud Connect, be an advantage to use it, because you could move more customers to your data center over the same bandwidth without investing in multiple links or bigger bandwidth. Veeam Cloud Connect Backup. It's a service, your end users can't buy it, but it's a service you can offer to your customers if they don't have a secondary site. So it just acts as a backup repository to your end users, easy to set up. You don't need any VPN. There is a Veeam Cloud SSL tunnel created between the customer side automatically and your cloud gateway. So it's quite easy to make it secure and keep it secure. And of course, even from the Cloud Connect, you have all the same restore functionalities like we know them from Veeam Backup and replication locally. But the nice thing with the Veeam Cloud Connect is that we have some insider protection. Okay, you have to enable it, and you can do it per tenant for each customer different, and it's just a small ticket box. Just say how many days you want to keep data that is deleted in the backup repository of your customer. So if they made a copy to your Cloud Connect environment, and they delete a backup, for instance, it could be an insider threat. If a user deletes, well, it will be moved. The data they delete will be moved to, let's say, a recycle bin, which is completely separate and where the user has no access to it. But it will be kept there for the number of days you specify. In that way, if the data got deleted by some malicious action or an insider threat, they don't have access to it. But they can, if they detect it, simply contact you and say, I think something's wrong there. Could you still get our data back? And then it's quite easy for a service provider to simply, let's say, undelete the data from the recycle bin on the Cloud Connect repository. So when it's used, so when a tenant or a customer of you deletes from disk or a delete backup file from the Cloud repository, and of course also when the backup files are automatically deleted from a backup chain in the Cloud repository. So if your backup chain evolves, data gets deleted also, and then it goes also first during the specified period to the a recycle bin. Of course, it doesn't include incremental backup files in a forever forward incremental chain, because that would be useless. You would end up with only increment data in your recycle bin, which isn't useful if you don't have the full backup to work with. Immutable backups, and there's some nice stuff coming here with version 11 from Veeam, which is coming or should be coming quite soon. But immutable backups with the capacity tier. So we all know the sober environment where we can set up what extends performance tier backup repository, and then a capacity tier backup. So with a capacity tier, which is an object storage, S3 compatible at this moment, we can enable immutability. And with immutable backups, nobody can do anything with it during the specified time of immutability. So it can't be deleted, can't be encrypted, can't be changed. It's like a write once, read many tape, but once it's written, you can't do anything anymore with the data. And it's quite easy to set up. So you need an object storage repository. You enable or you set up the scale out backup repository and enable the capacity tier, which points to your object repository. And of course, don't forget to enable the copy mode, which will.
Perhaps a small note on this one, so Thierry can take a sip out of his glass to drink a little bit. In the meanwhile, so capacity tier is indeed combined with a sober, so scale out backup repository. The best practice is indeed to use S3 compatible storage with immutability. There is a list on the forums of Veeam, so online you can check that. I'll copy paste the URL in the chat. And indeed, the best practice is to go ahead with the copy mode. Why copy mode? There are two modes available, copy and move. The move will only offload old backups towards the cloud repository, I would say, to this capacity tier. However, copy will instantly, after the backup has been taken on disk, will instantly start shipping that to your object storage. So whenever a smart hacker, because if you are a hacker, you're supposed to be smart, yeah, you enter the environment of a client, first thing to do is encrypt or delete all backups, yeah, because at that point in time, there is no way back for the client. However, if copy mode and immutability is enabled, at that point in time, you can simply start downloading, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, you can simply start downloading those backup files, in fact. So instantly you can revert to the day before, whenever that backup was being taken. Keep in mind, if you use cloud, you might have a small bandwidth issue if you're supposed to download 200 terabytes of data. In the meanwhile, by the way, Thierry, some questions popped up about V11. I'll treat them afterwards. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Stijn. So this is another overview. Of course, you don't have to use, for the capacity tier, you don't have to use S3 compatible. We also support IBM Cloud Object Storage, which is S3 compatible. You have Azure Blob Storage, you have the Amazon and S3 compatible, of course, and with the immutability on the S3 part. Yeah, so just the slide where you can enable the immutability. You do it by a number of days. Yeah, just know your own requirements and how long you want to make it immutable. Know that you can't change it for the data anymore. So once you set it, it's set for that data. And then, of course, enable the copy mode instead of the move mode, like Stijn already told. And how it works, well, it's the immediate copy, but Stijn already explained it also. So once from the moment on your first backup or your local backup is made on the performance tier, everything gets copied directly to the capacity tier. While with the move, it will sit there for a few days on your few days or whatever period you set up on the performance tier, and only after that specified time it will be copied to the capacity tier. So the copy mode is really important. And of course, with immutability at that moment, if someone tries to delete a backup or something, it will fail because you can't change the data. A nice thing also to know is if you lost everything locally, let's say, well, it's not commercial, but you can do a restart from your object storage, from your capacity tier with community edition after disaster. So if you lost everything, simply take let's say a Windows machine again, install the community edition, and you can simply from the community edition, can't create a sober there, but you can add the object storage, import the backups, and do restart from there. So if you lost everything, that is quite an easy. You don't have to go and look for where are my license files and so on. No, you simply take the community edition, install it, add the object storage, and you import the backups and do a restart from there what you need. Then the last part, data protection monitoring and reporting. It's not about Veeam 1 here. Of course, monitoring is quite important. We talked about it as a first thing. But here, I want to talk a little bit about as a Veeam service provider, you have the Veeam service provider console. And there's quite a few reporting in there too. And we're expecting any moment soon version 5 of the Veeam service provider console. And there are quite a few reports there also. Reports you can provide to your tenants or to your customers to prove that you're really backing up their data and to prove that you're taking care of their data. So we have quite a few possible reports here on storage usage. So the number of storage they use locally also, we can report them, but also from the a cloud backup. The number of VMs on every day we backed up to the cloud repository, and the data we transferred there consume space within their tenants, for instance. The usage per tier, performance tier, capacity tier, they used. Even a report on what's in the recycle bin, the insider threat prevention, what's in there, and so on. We can also run a report where we see how much VMs are protected. So a report of how much VMs the customer has on its location, how much are protected, and how much they have a successful backup on it. So it's all possible to run those reports and provide them even on an automated way by email to your customers. Another report. It's not my specialty, but with Veeam, Veeam has everything covered by APIs, even the backup products and so on. So also the reporting side. So if you want to create something on your own, a website where you don't want to send the reports by email to your customer, but you want to give them some dashboard on a website where they log in, you can use the APIs to even show the reports there. Everything is well documented on this part. So you really get everything. What you can get through the user interface, let's say, you can get them through the APIs also. So key takeaways. First thing, nothing to do really with the backup, but design with security in mind and use multiple security domains. So separate everything from security standpoint. Okay, it's not the ease of use, but it's the ease of protection, let's say. So multiple authentication accounts and roles for every separate job your administrators has to do. Okay. Use multiple backup locations. Think about the 3-2-1-0 rule. I would like to add a 0. So test your backups that you're sure you can recover from them. And of course, offline or offsite or air gap, like you want to call it, can be lifesavers because if they get in, they don't have access to that backup storage and can't encrypt it. And of course, document everything. If something happens, it will be a stressful period. So if you can fall back on documentation, well-documented scripts on how to do the restart, the recovery, it will give you some ease of mind at that moment. Some links, but we'll share the presentation afterwards. So there's some links to the Veeam sites where there is a special site, dedication site on ransomware. There is a ransomware assessment kit, and also there are some ransomware series papers by Veeam on best practices around even technical aspects of protection against ransomware. From my part, I'm at the end. So if there are questions, but I think Stan.
Yep, I'll cover them. So indeed, there were some V11 questions popped up. So everybody, I strongly suggest to keep asking questions in the chat. Then we will treat them from top to down, in fact. So starting from the top, Steven asked us about version 11. Is there something new in version 11 about ransomware protection or something linked with security and stuff like that? So yes, there is something called a hardened Linux repository which is supposed to be completely unbeatable, I would say, against that annoying hacker entering the environment. And it's a little bit technical. To keep it high level, actually, what we will suggest is you to create some kind of a Linux machine with built-in disks. And the strength of this setup is in fact that you do not need any root access. You do not need any SSH. So basically the machine is unavailable for everybody, also the insiders. So the local administrator will not be able to just log on as a root because it's not accepting that connection. We will install something like the data mover service on it, and we will talk through APIs instead of opening every time that tunnel through SSH, of which normally a hacker should, if it's a smart hacker, should use and benefit of it to jump from one host to the other host. So basically, the thing will be inaccessible at first, and imagine somebody is able to jump on that host for some security lack or reason that's not being covered yet within the company. The files itself are Linux immutable. So it's meaning we use the immutability of Linux itself to tag them with a timestamp, and only at a certain point in time, if that timestamp has been passed, it will become again read, write, executable, or the regular permissions within Linux. So at that point in time, not only a administrator, but also Veeam can clean up those files if the retention expires. So that is coming up. It is quite technical, and there is no way to explain that easily within even I think it's rather difficult because I'm not a Linux guru. So pay attention. Don't start it with it at once because you need some Linux knowledge about it to cover the basic security within Linux. Because everybody is always saying Windows is hackable. Yes, Windows is hackable, but Linux is hackable as well. So don't forget that. It's not like the holy grail. The only thing that we cannot protect you against is the insider that is going to walk to the data center itself, connect through just with a plug into the machine, and then logs on. That is impossible to cover. The other thing that is rather impossible to cover is that somebody else is walking into the data center and just pulls out the disks and put them back in a random order. So that is another insider protection that we cannot guarantee, which makes sense in the end. Yeah? Also, somebody suggested a bucket of water cannot be protected neither. So that's about it. Steven also suggested a CDP, which is a upcoming feature also in version 11. CDP, for the people that do not know yet, because there are plenty of webinars that already been treating this feature. Basically, it does on a very efficient way, copy paste. I will simplify it really hard. Copy paste a virtual machine from one data center towards the other data center or towards another location, other host or whatever. So does this protect against ransomware? I would say if you're fast enough, yes. But very likely no, because if you have an issue on the left side, we will, and that's why I simplify, copy paste the same issue towards the right side. Because it is what it is. There are change blocks, so we change those blocks at the right side as well on the other host. So it's not really a good cover, I would say, against ransomware. And then there is a question about dedupe appliances. So the suggestion was made for data domain. Is it considered as performance tier on that side? I strongly suggest no. Data domain is just for us. It's just a repository. Just like any other dedupe device, it's just a repository. What we always suggest, and I know it's rather hard to sell the idea or the concept at a smaller client, but the basic goal is to have just normal disks to put your first backup, and then a secondary device, can be a data domain, can be a store once, can be whatever other type of disks or whatever, as a secondary repository, can be cloud connected as well, and potentially a capacity tier in cloud or in object storage. Object storage like a device or a device with Minio installed on it that can treat object storage. On the dedupe appliance, I also mentioned to, and it was Steven again, so thank you again. The dedupe appliance, keep in mind, if you use that as a primary target, there is a small risk because all the fancy features, I would say, of Veeam, they will work, but on a limited speed. Why? Instant VM recovery, a complete and fast restore, sure backup, and scanning, antivirus scanning, stuff like that. Within Veeam, all features of Veeam, they work really performant, but a dedupe device is not being created for, they're being created for sequential reads. And what we do are certainly not sequential reads. So keep that in mind. And don't forget about the tape. So our product management is still very hot on tape. Why tape? Well, if you pull it out of the tape writer, then nothing can happen with the tape, in fact. I know it's very annoying to put tapes in it and pull out tapes at the end of the day, but it is always bulletproof, I would say. And that's about it. But it looks like nobody is daring to ask any questions. Still pending. Nothing new. Cannot be only Steven, come on. Yeah, correct. Nice, Steven again. Thanks for the comment on tape. Indeed, nobody is checking tapes in the end. So you write a tape and you hope it's right. I always use the example of my holiday job I used to do as a student. I'm not going to tell you where it was, but it was quite funny. So there was a guy in the company that took out and put in tapes every day for the last 15 years. So put it in, and then the day after, put it out, put it in a carton box next to it, which is not very good practice, but whatever. And then put a new tape in the robot. So he was doing that for about 10, 15 years. So the tape sizes, he has seen all kind of tapes in the meanwhile. And the funny thing is, all of a sudden, they called from the main office because the guy is not an ITer. He just works at the accountancy of the company. And he was asked for that site, remote site, to pull in and pull out tapes. And all of a sudden, he was asked for IT department to put in tape number that, because something really bad happened and they needed to restore it. So the guy put in the carton box, discovered the right tape, put it in the robot, and they start reading out of the tapes, and it looked like it was empty. So for the past 15 years, I kid you not, actually nothing was written ever on tapes, but he was putting in and pulling out tapes. So it was never tested, and that was the main issue. So there was no restore, and they had a small issue. So they had to reinstall everything from scratch, and they lost all the data. So test tapes, small suggestion.
questions?
Wim, very good question. Is it out already? Well, the guys who are service provider will be, so for the version 11, the guys who are service provider will be informed first, so they can update their Cloud Connect, and they have not been informed yet. And 2 weeks afterwards, version 11 will come out as generally available. The when is also a very good question. It's ready when it's ready. That's the main sentence that is being used at the product management of Veeam. That they're running in some last phases, I would say. So it's almost ready. No date is known, by the way. Don't ask, I don't know.
But we could say that if it was a pregnancy, the bags are already at the door to go to the hospital, I think. Same.
It's the same for me, Thierry. I'm waiting as well. So
it should be soon.
Let's summarize, like V11 will be very likely first before my son is getting born. So
we're just around the clock of 1 hour. So I think if there are no more questions, of course, if there are still questions popping up after this webinar, just send us an email and we can take it on from email. If not, I would say thank you for joining us on this Partner Academy. And we're looking forward to do business and to see you soon on other webinars from Big Data concerning Veeam and their new products, because it's not only V11, which is announced, but there are quite a few new products coming. So thank you for attending.
Okay. Thank you, Thierry and Stan, for the interesting presentation.
We don't hear you, Charlotte.
you have the same issue with the double mute, I guess.
Yeah.
She's back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Stan and Thierry, for the presentation, and thanks to all the partners for being present. Please expect my email with the recording and our contact details, just in case you don't have them yet.